tricks when it comes to making vocals sound good is a big thing people want to know, and here's a couple. Something that people will talk about with effects all the time is the sidechain compressor ducks down the reverb sound, which basically then blossoms as it lets go. So it's a very popular technique, and all you do is, if you notice, like I will often run an EQ into a reverb, into the sidechain compressor, and sometimes, like I said, I'll put a delay into a reverb, into a sidechain compressor. Now, the sidechain compressor, see how it says bus 11? Okay, on the track itself, these vocal tracks, the blue ones, the light blue, bus 11, bus 11. So they're being sent to this, which makes it where they duck down this sound, okay, as, you know, because these tracks also, like if you see 105, 106, so on this track itself, 105, 106, so it's being sent here, so it's getting fed the vocal, then it ducks it down when it hits this compressor, and as soon as that lets go, it opens it up again. So these settings aren't really that critical, but just check out what it is. When you keep it on electro mode, it winds up being the faster style 1176 emulation when you're using RComp, and when you flip it to opto, that's the LA2A style emulation. All these brown tracks for me are my reverbs. Now, I've mentioned in other videos that 3 reverbs is like a good amount, in my opinion, to use. Sometimes 4, okay? The reason being is because I think of things in terms of old school style. They'd have 1 reverb unit. Sometimes they'd have 2, maybe 3. But the point is, they didn't have 12. They didn't have an unlimited supply of reverbs like we do today. And because of that, they were like, in spite of that, I should say, they were still able to make amazing, everything sounds great. And the reason is because of how they use it. They're sending their tracks into these reverbs, and by sending them in here in different amounts, in other words, the reverbs don't live on the track, they live on their own auxiliary returns and, you know, sends and returns. So when you send to these, this is the return here, these are the sends, and the idea is you can take a snare and send a little bit of that snare sound to the reverb, and then basically you're controlling how much reverb is being put on the snare by how much of the send you actually send to it. So you can really use one plate across a whole mix in differing amounts on each individual track, and it sounds amazing. The same kind, and it'll just start to sound like cohesive. So what I usually do is I'll use a plate, a room, a hall sound, and a non-linear. Those are like the go-to reverbs that are going to be across the board no matter what different reverb plugin you use. Why, you may ask, is there so many? Well, if you notice the left plate here, you already know the answer. I pan my reverbs. I will often take one reverb and pan it to the left, one center, and one right. I'll take the room and I'll pan it one left, one center, one right. Now this is where it changes for me. I'll take the hall sound and keep it centered. Reason I do that is because, in my opinion, the hall is like the longest, most sort of over-encompassing reverb, and because of that, I find when you pan it, it sort of just sounds smeary a little bit. Like it's never as good when you push it to one side. So in my opinion, I'll keep the hall centered, all right, and I'll do a non-linear in the similar fashion where I go, you know, non-linear left, center, right. That's where I got this idea from, was JJP, but I have not seen a video on it, so that's why I decided to throw one out there. Delays, I got my slap, like a 300 millisecond, usually one a little longer, 310, and this could change to like half that, you know, a 150 and a 110 or something. You know, like there's no science really behind this other than you listen to the song and you set it where you want to set it. And a lot of times I'll use the tap instead of the BPM. And, you know, Mark Daniel Nelson mentioned this. I've heard a lot of guys talk about this. It's better when it's not exactly locked in with the BPM of the song, depending on the genre, of course, and depending on how you're trying to make the effect work. If you're trying to make it a groove thing, you know, try it both ways. But I have a tendency to like setting it by hand. I like setting it by hand because then I'm feeling what it's doing, and it's not just always deadlocked to the grid. You'll make music stale if you look at music where everything has to be deadlocked to the grid. It's very genre dependent because some genres you have to do that. But if you're trying to go for real natural sounding stuff and you're working on, music that's not, dance or something, I would say it's way more common to not do that. All right. When you come over here and you got slap, you got your delays, you got quarter delays, you got a throw, okay? Now, this could change to an eighth note, could change to a dotted eighth, could change to a dotted quarter. It doesn't matter. It's just you pull something up in a template and you adjust it later. And these could all be set to like I wanted to show you guys, you could use Echo Boy on all of them because the sound could be, classic tape slap, 15 ips, and then the sound could be classic analog delay, which sounds totally different, and then it could be ping pong. So it's just using Echo Boy. You could really get at it. You can get after it, man. So it's like, it's just not a thing where I'm not the type of person who stresses you need to buy a ton of different plugins. You need to buy the ones that get you to the goal, whatever that is. And the more you have in your plugin folder, the harder it is to sort of figure out which to use sometimes. And, it's like having too many t-shirts. What are you going to do? It's like, oh, which one do I wear? It's ridiculous. Let's keep in mind something else. When you're panning your reverbs and you have your like double vocal track, experiment with not sending, the lead vocal to the same, side plate or something as you would send the double. All right, so I'm going to show you what these reverbs sound like in the track because that's kind of important, but we're going to solo it first and then I'm going to give it to you in the track so you can really hear what's going on. And I also bumped the volume of these. They usually wouldn't live on the top of the metering for me. I just bumped it so you guys could hear what's going on. So the left plate, all right, on the left side is actually being fed by this double. And that's all in the routing. In other words, 105, 106 gets sent to 105, 106. Now, on the other side, the lead, this is 105, 106 because they're all in a line. That's just how I do my effects. Like, I just make them live on the same line so I know what's going on at a glance. Now, it's off on the left side. This, when I say left side, I mean this lead vocal is off, which means nothing's being sent to this left. And the same way on the opposite side, 95, 96 is what the lead vocal is being sent to. And then this side, we will take off. So by doing that, listen to what happens.
Your letter, written with original ink. It couldn't make you stop and think. Couldn't make...
So that right sound is the double in that side. This is the lead.
Your letter, written with original ink. It couldn't.
So what that's doing, in my opinion, is it's actually taking the reverb out of the way of any other instruments that I will have that occupy the center. So this makes room for other instruments. As soon as you go to center this, all of a sudden it takes over. Way too much space, in my opinion. Sometimes I may want the vocal verb to take up everything, but if I want to make room for it, I get it out of the way by doing that. And keep in mind, I also have the EQ, which takes off highs and lows. I have the lexicon sound, which is on all three of these are the same sound. I have them all the same. Now I can decide if I want this specific plate on the left, center, or right. It's not about having 10 different reverb sounds. It's about having 3 or 4 sometimes, but just 3 in the pan sense, and then where you put them. So just let me show you the difference by just playing this and then flipping it to the center pan and hear the difference. It's just a much bigger hug of the reverb. Ready?
Your letter,
this is pan.
Written with original ink.
This is center pan.
Couldn't make you stop and think. Couldn't make you stop and see the world.
It takes over so much more this way. And if I did want something to live in the middle, it might just be the verb from the lead vocal. And a lot of times, and you'll hear other people talk about this, you run a delay into a reverb, into a sidechain compression, a compressor, and that will help a lot. So bus 11, if you see bus 11, these are all, this is my sending to my sidechain. And that is the same key input on all of these, bus 11. Bus 11. They're all bus 11. So that's the point. So this slap channel over here is 8384. See the slap 8384, but it feeds 9394. So this slap is not actually being sent out to my converters, or it's also like if you didn't use converters, it's not being sent out to the mix bus. It's being sent to 9394, and 9394 is this, the center plate. So I'm running the delay into this reverb using different auxiliary buses by different sends and returns. That makes it where now I can control just the lead, let's say, going into over here, you'd send it to 8384. So this is 8384. And then I'm going to actually take this out, which is the double. I only want this one going there. So now listen to it. And that's the slap sound, which is, it's this Echo Boy classic tape slap. Now the tape slap 15 ips is just a typical slap delay that is a good thing to use to like fill up the middle. Check this out. I'm going to add this to the middle.
Your letter, written with original ink.
That's with it. This is without.
Couldn't make you stop and think. Couldn't make you stop and see the world.
This is with it.
You're chambered in the prison of your mind.
See, I can get the hug back if I want, but I still have a plate sound on the left and on the right that's not affected by the delay. Then I've got the center plate that is. So I'm basically really messing with the colors. And this is a game of inches. We're talking about a few percent increase here and there of coolness. By doing that, by creating these different sounds, these different palettes, left, right, and center, you could also experiment like this. Like, for example, instead of this left, let's use this, the room sound, instead of the plate. Let's mess with that. So 7980 is what that is. So I'm going to come over to 7980 and make that my sound on the left. So we're going to use this track. That's 7980. So now we're sending the double, which is quite low, you know, compared to the lead, right? And I'm going to send that to the room sound that's panned left. And the lead is going to be sent to the plate that's panned right. And I'm going to take off this center plate just so we don't get confused. You ready? Listen to this.
Your letter, written with original ink. It couldn't make you stop and think. Couldn't make you stop and see the world.
Now you've got a completely different reverb sound as you do here. So now the blend is actually really getting specific as far as directionality of where the reverbs are. I find this huge. Like this was an eye-opening moment for me when I realized that this is something that can be done, because I always looked at it like you blend reverbs and they're all just center panned or something. Like I never really looked at it in this way. And I'm not sure if other people do, you know, but this is how I've always thought was just it was a light bulb. As soon as this occurred to me, I think my mix has jumped to another level. And again, we're talking about little bits of increase, but this was in my opinion, pretty substantial increase. And again, if I need more in the middle, I'll hit it with the plate. Ready?
Your letter, written with original ink. It couldn't make you stop and think. Couldn't make you stop and see the world.
Pretty cool. Now, instead of, you know, let's just do something else. Ready? I'm going to add this quarter note delay, which is, let's look at where the routing is. 111, 112 is being sent to 101, 102. So 111, 112 needs to be on whatever we're sending to it. And in my case, I'm going to do it from this lead, not the double. And why? Just because that's what I choose. Mess around. Figure out what you like for your song. In our case, I like to look at it as there's no right answer. There's the amount of permutations possible within what we're doing is astronomical. Now, some people may be, you know, that may cause them to be upset or afraid. I love it. I love the possibilities that exist within what we do. It's why I love this, because no possible person's going to get the same result as somebody else, because everyone has slightly different ideas. They like slightly different things. They hear slightly differently. This is the beauty of what we do. We are all artists. Everybody out there who's a mixer, a producer, a mastering engineer, you guys are artists, man. All of you. I want you to realize that. Like a guy who, like, you're a painter with audio. Really embrace that. Okay, now here we go. We're going to, adding that quarter note delay really is going to change some stuff. That quarter note delay is 111, 112. This is just my routing. Don't shouldn't memorize or write this stuff down. It's not going to help you at all. It's just the concept. I'm sending to that. So because that's the first step. This has no converter. See, this is going to over back there to 101, 102. So that's just where you figure out where it goes. 101, 102 is this sound. So if I want to hear that, I have to turn that on, and that's the center sound. Now I could pan this if I want, or just send it to the room sound on a different side if I want. Or it could be center. Like if I wanted to send it to this side, see how this is 103, 104? The way I would do that, instead of panning the center one, because I may want that for some other reverb, I'm going to literally go over here and change the routing on this quarter note delay to 103, 104. And now all of a sudden, that's where it goes. So now it will be on the right side because that's where 103, 104 is panned. 103, 104, right side. See what I'm saying? So this is where you really get to be funky with it. So, let's make sure on this track that 103, 104 exists. And in our case now, it doesn't. So we're going to put it on. Might as well. Let's put it on. 103, 104. All right, because 103, 104.
Your letter, written with original ink. It couldn't make you stop and think. Couldn't make you stop and see the world. You're chambered in the prison of your mind.
I'm going to take off the automation on here just to be able to let us actually hear what's going on.
Your letter, written with original ink. It couldn't make you letter, written with original ink. It couldn't make you stop and think. Couldn't make you stop and see the world. You're shame.
You can be as aggressive as you want. I generally wouldn't send like a quarter note delay to a very washy, like big reverb sound, because you won't really get the definition that you want out of that delay. So a better move would be to send it to something like a plate. And in our case, let's send it to this right plate, 95, 96. So we come over here, we look at our quarter note delay, we change it from 103, 104 to 95, 96.
Your letter, written with original ink. It couldn't make you stop and think. Couldn't make you stop and see the world. You're chambered in the prison of your mind.
It's interesting because now we have a long delay on the right and a long reverb on the left. So that's like, it's like, let's just listen to it in the track, because by itself, and this, I have to stress this, let me stress this most important thing. If you got to this point in the video, you're really improving, because this tip will help you if you don't know it already. Don't mix in solo. The thing with a lot of tutorials is people need to show you in solo so that you can hear what's happening, but when I'm mixing a song, I'll tell you when I solo. I'll solo like drums, snare, a kick, a tom, if I'm trying to gate and figure out where the gate should be set to eliminate, bleed of other instruments and make it where it's where only the sound I want. You got to solo. If you're trying to set like a de-esser, right, and you want to focus on the frequency, exactly that's what's bothering you, maybe you solo. It's probably 5 or 10% or less. I'm soloing when I'm mixing. 90% of the time plus, the freaking whole thing is playing when I'm mixing. And the reason is, like I said, those are moments and seconds in time, less than a minute, 30 seconds, you'll flip up to see if you're getting the low end extension right or something. Then you're going back. You're going back to hear what it sounds like as a whole. I can't stress enough, mixing vocals in solo is a disaster waiting to happen, because if you make stuff sound good by itself, that doesn't matter. It has to sound good together. If it doesn't sound good together, it's all over. Doesn't matter how good it sounds by itself. And that's why if you make it sound good by itself and think to yourself, now that it sounds good by itself, when I put it together, it must sound good. That's the opposite of true. Okay, it couldn't be farther away. Never the twain shall meet. They're not even in the same ballpark. It ain't the same league. It ain't even the same sport. If anybody knows what movie that's from, throw it in the comments. Bottom line is, this is absolutely 100% the biggest tip you'll ever get is don't mix in solo. Hardly ever do I mix in solo. I'm showing you guys tricks. That's why I do it this way. So let's turn these stuff off. Let's just hear what it sounds like in the track, and we'll adjust as needed. All right, let's go.
Your letter, written with original ink. It couldn't make you stop and think. Couldn't make you stop and see.
I'm gonna make the delay sound a little lower because I noticed it's coming in a little hot for my liking. So the delay is being panned over to 95, 96. I'm gonna lower that sound. Here we go.
Letter, written with original ink. It couldn't make you stop and think. Couldn't make you stop and see the world. You're chambered in the prison of your mind, ready to explode at any time. Gotta prove you work.
I love it. I mean, for what we're doing, it's sounding cool. And again, I don't usually mix in headphones. It's like not something I do. I mix on speakers. So no matter how good I can get it in here, I'm always going to be on speakers most of the time. This is just what I do to be able to talk into a mic and not have the bleed through. So, you know, it actually sounds decent to you guys. But again, I like what's going on. What I also do is I'll check in headphones certain things. That's it. But then I'm going back to the speakers. This is another one, like 5% of the time or less, maybe 7%. Like I'm never in headphones. I want to show you what it sounds like when it's the wide way, the normal way, without panning the reverbs, so you can hear the difference. Ready?
Your letter, written with original ink. It couldn't make you stop and think. Couldn't make you stop and see the world. You're chambered in the prison of your mind, ready to explode at any time.
I'm going to flip it back.
Your letter, written with original ink. It couldn't make you stop and think. Couldn't make you stop and see the world. You're chambered in the prison of your mind, ready to explode at any time. Gotta prove you work.
Maybe it's just me. I just like it so much better this way. You know, with the panning, I think it's just more alive. I don't know what it is. To me, it sounds more alive, and everybody here is different, so maybe you guys feel differently. Either way, let me know what you think. Throw it in the comments. It's very helpful. A big part of the way I like to teach is that there are no right answers. Like, half of what I do is experimenting. I mean, let's be real. It is. So, and anybody who tells you that there's one way to do things is not really who they should be. What I'm saying is look at these, how the compressors, you know, the side chain is at the bottom, but notice how I have them at the top too. And the reason is, if you put a compressor at the top, it has a completely different sound than if you run it at the bottom. And this is the same side chain compressor with the same settings. It's just at the top compared to at the bottom. Now, at the top, it's sometimes helpful for things like plucky guitars or plucky violins. Even on vocals, it'll do a thing that's different, totally different than this hug factor, this underneath blossom. Listen to the difference. I mean, let's show you.
Your letter, written with original ink. It couldn't make you stop and think. Couldn't make you stop and see the world. You're chambered in the prison of your mind, ready to explode at any time.
Anyway, I hope this sparks a fire. I hope this is a video that people find value in. Again, there's not one way to do this. There's tons of ways to do this. Let me also throw one more thing in here, okay? If anybody out there is feeling like they're a little bit in a position where, like, if they get hurt by comments when people say things like wannabe engineers, or if they're talking down to you in any way, calling you anything short of that's amazing, you're learning, man. If it's anything short of that, you have to realize something. There's only one type of person who would do that. You know what that is? Somebody who's not happy where they are. Somebody who's not happy with the position they're in life. Those are the only people who talk down to other people. Because people who are successful, especially who are successful at being something like an engineer, which is an artist. You are an artist. It's the same thing like a producer. You're an artist. The only people that are in that position and talk down to other people are people who aren't worth anything. They are nothing. That's the only reason that they would do that. Because anybody who is successful looks at you and says, that's awesome, you're learning, man. Try this, try that. They may have constructive criticism and tell you, try this, you may like it. The point is, they're not going to talk down to you. As soon as somebody's doing that, you can picture where they are, and you should feel bad for them, because it's sad. It's sad how much they hate themselves when somebody does stuff like that. So just keep all this stuff in mind, guys. You gotta, I'm an ambassador for everybody out there who's learning, because in my opinion, we were all learning at one point. I'm always learning. I am at the point where I've realized so clearly that when you stop learning, you stop growing and you stop getting better. So every single person, especially the pros, they're the ones that are out there listening the most. They're trying to pick up everything they can, because any sort of information they get, they could turn into a gem because of all their other knowledge that they bring to the table. That's why you guys got to realize this is a never-ending quest. This is not a quest where you get to an end. It's all about the journey, especially in this field. All right? I want to leave you with that amazing note, because you have to realize what's going on out there. And you will be hit with stuff like that. Do not let it affect you, not for 1 second. Remember who they are if they're doing that to you, okay? Pan one of the reverbs over to the subscribe button, and then if you could, pan another reverb over to the delay. Not the delay, the like button. Imagine if there was a delay button. That wouldn't be good. Leave a comment if you've got any other tips and tricks like this, or if this helped you at all, or if you do your own thing that's similar or not. I want to know about it, because we're going to create this thing where everybody's learning from these comments. Those are the comments we love. I don't have to agree with all of them. I actually love the back and forth. If it's something I don't agree with, I'm happy to learn. So let's throw it in there. You guys got this. Evan Jaffe, Custom Cut Studios. Take it easy.